Sheep scouting. Now I know what you're thinking. Do I really want to spend my evening learning about such a boring topic? But hear me out. This might be exactly what you need to propel yourself from gold to platinum, or maybe even from diamond to conqueror. Remember that it's not only about finding sheep, it's about denying your opponent easy access to food. For once your opponent's coffers have run dry, he'll be forced to move onto the map to find alternative sources of food. And that's where you can strike and annihilate his economy in one fell swoop. So strap yourselves in and let's get started. The ancient Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu once said to let your plans be dark and impenetrable as the night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. Now what does that mean? To me personally, in this situation when it comes to sheep, means to not show your scout too early, and by the time you do show your scout, it's already too late for your opponent to react and you have 10 or 11 sheep, meaning you fell like a thunderbolt. This is how I see it. There's always a pit in my stomach when I see my opponent have like 10, 11 sheep and there's nothing I can do about it at that point. Now let's put this all into context. Let's say that you send your scout to the front of your opponent's base. Now by doing so, you're going to be able to see where his resources are, which will help you devise a plan. However, he also sees where your scout is. And since he sees where your scout is and you can see the direction in which it's traveling, he's able to send his scout in front of your scout, i.e. front running your scout. So if his scout is going to be in front of your scout the whole time and you're not going to know about it most likely, you're going to be able to get no sheep, whereas he's going to get all of the sheep on the map until you finally realize, but by then it's too late. So that's what I mean, don't show your scout early on. The map will leave you the tiniest of clues, you just need to know what you're looking for. Miyamoto Musashi once said, "Perceive that which cannot be seen with the eye." And this is related to his adversaries who wielded weapons intent on striking him. He was looking at their breathing, their stance, their rhythm, all of which held clues as to their next move. How does that relate to AoE 4? Well, a lot if you let it. Now I want to use two terms. I want to use affirmations and I want to use doubt. Let's say you're going down a path and you find a couple of sheep. Big deal, right? Well, no, this is an affirmation. This means that your opponent did not go down this path, and as a result, that means you can continue and safely go down this path and you're more than likely going to find an abundance of sheep. But let's say the opposite holds true. Let's say you go down a path for quite some time and you find absolutely nothing. Well, now you should start having some doubt. Okay, did my opponent go down this path? Did he already find all the sheep in this area? These are the type of things you want to consistently think about in the early game when you're trying to find sheep. There's also a lot of subtle nuances that you can think about. For example, if my opponent went down a certain path, he went through deer, then the deer are going to be spread out and not in their natural formation. If you see this, then you know, okay, it's possible that my opponent went straight through these deer, and as a result, I might want to take another path because it's going to create some doubt for me as to if this is the right path. There's so many different ways you can use this tip, but this is some basic ones for now. Now Sun Tzu said to be subtle even to the point of formlessness, to be mysterious to the point of soundlessness, thereby you can be the director of your opponent's fate. Now we already talked about being mysterious, but what does he mean by being subtle, to be formless? The way I see it is he's saying do not be rigid, be very dynamic. And that's exactly what scouting in Age of Empires 4 is. It's not like these other games where you can kind of just do a little bit of the same thing you've done all the time. You have to be very dynamic. Let me give you some examples. Let's say that you're scouting here on this map, right? The vast majority of players go to the middle of the map, right? They go to contest what's there. So now you're there and your opponent is also there. So what do? Now the easy thing is one guy goes one way and the other person goes the other way, right? The issue is, now if you're going this way, do you go this way? Do you go this way? Or do you just go back home and be safe? Now these are things you need to think about in the context of the game, right? This is a simple thing right here, but for me personally, I think if you're going to be doing this, you have to go straight. The reason why is if you're going backwards in this little motion right here, your opponent can take care of all of this right here, and then by the time you wrap around, it's all gone and he's already on the other side, if you know what I mean, right? So you have to take a little bit of the riskier approach. And the issue is most players know this. Most players know that this is going to happen. So what do? They try to mimic each other's actions. So if I'm going this way right here, and I'm going to try to do that little devious plan that I talked about, my opponent will also go there. And they'll continuously mirror each other along the map until there's a dead end and in which you turn, right? So this is usually what's going to happen. But let's say you're at a lower league and players are not doing this, what I just spoke about, then you can easily just be a little bit more cunning and take over a lot of your opponent's area before he's able to even react, right? So be formless. Don't have a rigid way of seeing the game. Don't say I want to do a little circle around my base and be done with it. Think about the repercussions of all of your actions. Another very important tip that I'm just going to leave you with here in this part of the video is that if you want to be able to do a greedy strategy like this where you go onto your opponent's side of the map, you need to ensure that you have enough sheep in your home base. So what that means is, let's say you found a sheep right here, you want to quickly send it in manually to the base right there. So you have to be greedy sometimes, but you also want to be safe and ensure you have enough sheep at home if you're going to be greedy with your scouting. Now the next question you might be asking yourself is, where are the sheep on the map? And the answer to that is, it varies, right? No two maps are going to be the same. And then there's also different variations of maps in the sense that Arabia is vastly different than a map such as Gorge. However, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Arabia, and once you understand the fundamentals of Arabia, you're going to be able to understand how to look at other maps and be able to ascertain where the sheep are going to be. Okay, so let's start off. And I had the pleasure of speaking to Cow, and Cow is very, very knowledgeable when it comes to the game, especially when it comes to map. He's made a lot of maps from my understanding, and he does a lot of work with EGC TV when it comes to like tournaments and whatnot. So he actually walked me through it. And one of the things he said was, there's going to be a minimum distance between your town center and where the sheep are around your base. So if we're looking at, let's say, the red player's base, he said that within a 50 tile radius or something along those lines, maybe I'm butchering it a little bit, but there's definitely going to be 2 sheep. Okay, so you can kind of see right here, there's 2 sheep. And then the next thing he said was an even further radius than that, there's going to be another 2 sheep. So if we draw a bigger circle around that, there's going to be another 2 sheep. So no matter what, on Arabia, you're going to have 4 sheep next to your or near your town center. Where they are, it's going to differ, but they're going to be there. Now, he talked a little bit about neutral radius. So he's saying that the map will give you a little bit of a split down the middle. And within that split, there's going to be sheep. This is not a perfect line. It's going to be a little bit differently, but it's going to be evenly paced out between the two. However, that being said, they're not going to be entirely fair. That's the one thing you got to get straight. Finding sheep is not always going to be fair. Sometimes your opponent's going to find more and sometimes you're going to find more. That's how it is. However, when we look at most maps and most of the generations I've seen, if you look at the actual neutral corners of the map, the neutral corners are going to be here, 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 sorry, not there, here, and here, and here, and here. You can see if you look at most of the neutral corners, there's not that much sheep in those areas, right? So basically 5 out of 6 times there's no sheep, right? So if we look right here, nothing, right here, nothing, 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 and here there's 2, right? Is this going to be the case in every single map? Probably not, but this is just a good little baseline for me, right? Now I know that my scouting pattern is usually, and I'm saying usually because this is going to be differing depending on who you're playing sometimes, right? But if I'm the red player, I usually want to go to the middle and then I want to wrap around, right? Like something along those lines and then come out the other side. The reason I want to do this is because I know for sure there's 4 sheep around my base, so I want to be able to get those. And the second thing is I want to get a little bit of the neutral sheep on the map, which is why, once again, if I'm red on this map and I go forward, you know, there's 3 sheep right there, then I wrap around, I pretty much got the bulk of the sheep, right? Now, obviously, if you think about it, right, you can go the wrong way and get completely screwed, right? So if I was the red player and I went, like, let's say I went to the middle, found some sheep, and I went this way, right? Then my opponent, if he was smart enough or if he got lucky enough, he might have gone this way and I would be at a major disadvantage. At some point, there is luck involved. However, you want to be able to minimize the amount of luck that's involved in some of the sheep scouting. So here are the takeaways. First of all, there's usually 4 sheep around your town center on Arabia. Look at the other maps, see if you see any patterns, and then you just go from there on out. Most of the time in the neutral corners, I'm not seeing that there's that many sheep. There might be on some maps, maybe I've just had bad generations, but generally I would say that your scouting should be focused on going to the middle, doing a wrap around your base, and then you're going to go out from there and out. Okay, so that's kind of how I would be scouting. Alright guys, so I'm going to end it with some quick tips, okay? So tip number 1, and I talked about this a little bit earlier too, but when you're scouting, you want to go and quickly send the first one that you find back to your base manually. By doing this, you're going to be able to go out on the map for much longer without having to come back. And the second thing is you're not going to have to worry about your opponent intercepting you at this point, because it's very unlikely that your opponent's scout gets to here this fast by the time the sheep can get in place. Another tip is if you click on the building, the town center itself, the sheep will speed up as time passes by. Alright, I want to show you guys another quick tip as well. You see this villager right here is gathering the sheep that's a little bit further away. This is essentially, if you click on the building, you'll see the sheep will stop right here. This villager is underneath the town center gathering. You can see that there's a couple seconds of walking time here, right? At least I would say 3 seconds to go there, come back, and then start working again. Whereas this villager has almost no walking time whatsoever. So what I like to do with my sheep is I like to click them, and then you're going to drag and click underneath the town center like this. By doing so, the villager has no walking time. Now it's good to have these sheep like this underneath the town center initially so you have no walking time, but the problem is they bunch up a lot faster. So if you put them all under the town center, they're going to get really crowded here. So what you want to do is your initial sheep, you want to put it under the town center so you can get a faster gather rate. But as the game progresses and things start speeding up, you're not going to have the time to micromanage your sheep. So I would say put the remaining amount of sheep like this. Yes, you're going to lose a little bit of walking time, but they're not going to bunch up. And the other thing is when they are finished the sheep, they're not going to show idle, or they're going to show idle as soon as they're done the sheep. Whereas if they're under the town center and they're all bunched up, it's unlikely that you're going to get the idle villager button happening as a result. Alright, another very important tip is you don't need to get too close to the sheep. And this is important because you want to go down a certain path and you don't want to come and turn just to capture a sheep. So what I mean by that is, let's say this scout wants to go straight on out, and there's a sheep right here. Instead of me going here and then going this way, you can just continuously go in a straight line like such and come a little bit close, but not too close, and you're going to see the sheep is just going to come right towards me, right? As I said, this is helpful because if you're able to do this, you don't have to make a turn and get a sheep. You can just continuously go straight. Now, how close do you go to a sheep? That's something that's a little bit of trial and error, but from my estimation, it's about, let's say about this much worth. I think you can capture most sheep if it's just around that. But you're going to have to play around with it to see for yourself. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative. I hope it helps you in your games. If you guys have anything you want to add to help the other players out, please post something in the comment section below. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.